So you want to know when to start your seeds indoors? Watch this video and find out. Well, hello backyard vegetable gardeners. Welcome to the Backyard Vegetable Gardening channel. Today's February the 12th, 2024, and I sure hope you're having a great day. Well, it's been made apparent to me by looking at social media that there sure are a lot of people who are asking the question, when should I start my seeds indoors? So today, that's what we're going to be talking about. And when it comes to starting your seeds indoors, it's really not as complicated as a lot of people think it may be. The problem is they might be new to gardening and nobody's ever explained to them the science behind it. And when I say science, I know a lot of people are going to tune out, but the truth is it's simple science. And we're going to talk about just a few things today that's going to help you know when to start your seeds. And when it comes to starting our seeds indoors, there's really only two things that we really got to know up front to make the determination of when we should get them started. Number one, am I wanting to grow a cool season crop or a warm season crop? That's going to make a big difference. The second thing that we got to know is our average first and last frost date. That's going to be the most important thing you need to know. So I'm going to try my best to make just a short video to explain how to know when to start your seeds, because really and truly it don't take a lengthy explanation. So remember, the first thing we got to know is whether we're growing a cool season crop or a warm season crop. Now, some examples of cool season crops are your broccoli, your cabbage, all your brassicas, lettuce, radishes, even your carrots. Your warm season crops, your tomatoes, your peppers, your cucumbers, anything like that, those are going to be your warm season crops. One of the reasons that that's so important to know is that if you try to grow lettuce in the heat of summer, you're going to find out you're not going to get good lettuce. It's going to quickly go to flower. We call that bolting. And the leaves are going to get bitter. You're not going to like it. Same way with your broccoli heads. You're going to spend that time getting that broccoli plant good and tall. The next thing you know, you're going to see a little head emerging, and if it gets anywhere above 70, 75 degrees, I don't care how dense that head is, it's going to go to flower and you're not going to be able to harvest nothing. So you want to make sure that you get those planted as soon as you can to avoid that heat. And one thing you can do to extend that is like when you start nearing the end of the spring season, you can put you some shade cloth over top of your broccoli, and that'll help you in your lettuce too. And you might can get with your lettuce some slow bolt varieties, and that'll help you. Sorry folks, had to cut out on you. Had an eyelash get in my eye and I just couldn't manage to get that thing taken care of, so we had to stop filming. But what I was saying was that when you get those cool season crops planted, and the temperature starts getting anywhere close to 70, you're probably going to want to cover them with some shade cloth or something like that. It'll greatly help. But once that air temperature starts getting above 70, 75 degrees, some of these plants just don't like it. Now your warm season crops, boy, they love it. Especially when it gets toward the 80 degree mark, they really do like it. But what you'll notice is when it gets above 90 degrees, a lot of the plants start suffering. You'll start dropping your blooms and the leaves will start turning brown and you just can't help it. So now that we know about our cool season crops and our warm season crops and how important that is to starting your seeds, we need to know about our first and our last average frost dates. One of the easiest ways that you can find out your first and last frost date is by going to almanac.com. Go to the weather tab, and we've got a little short that'll show you exactly how to do this, and look for frost dates, and there'll be a little box. Put your zip code, hit the little button, and it'll show you your average first and last frost date, and it'll even tell you how many days that you have in your growing season. Greatly help you. So with that out of the way, we got to start talking about these plants. All right, we're going to start seeds indoors. We're going to grow them. We're going to keep them inside for several weeks, maybe a couple months. For me, I'm going to start some warm season plants here in just a few weeks, and they're going to be inside about 8, some of them 10 weeks. I've got to have somewhere to keep those plants. You start out in trays, they're going to germinate, you're going to see all these little bitty plants. Well, next thing you know, you're going to have tomato plants that are 8, 10, 12 inches tall. And your pepper plant's the same way. Peppers are going to grow a little slower than your tomatoes, but still, so you're going to have these plants that are going to be almost a foot tall and 6 or 8 inches around. What you going to do with all them? They take up a lot more space than these little seed starting trays that we got. And you got to be aware of that. The last thing you want to do is to grow a bunch of plants indoors and then have nowhere to put them. The second problem that you might run into if you start them too early is that you're going to have to pot them up. Now, for a lot of people, this is general practice. I don't much care to spend a lot of time potting things up. I'm going to put them in an oversized tray or cup, and that's where they're going to stay the whole time they're here. I don't like spending a lot of time. I'm a busy fella, and many of you got full-time jobs. You've got other things you do, the kids, family, church, community. You don't want to spend no more time on stuff than you just have to. So if you start them too early, the plants are going to get big, the root system's going to develop too large, and if you don't pot them up, that is to take them out of that little bitty cell or cup and plant them into a bigger one, they're going to become root bound, and that might even stun them, might even hurt them so bad that they never fully recover from it. They could die, but the chances of that's probably pretty slim. More than likely what's going to happen is you're going to stunt your plant, and that means when you get them out in the garden, they're going to take a little longer to revive themselves, get healthy, and start growing like they should. So that's a couple things that I'm just going to warn you about up front. Now, I really don't like to miss my seed starting date by too awful much. But if you're off a few weeks, it's probably not going to hurt you. But if you do have to be off a few weeks, you want to be a little later rather than sooner to prevent those problems. See, if I start them a little later than they should, I can always give them a little fertilizer and make them a little bit bigger, a little quicker. When they're too large and I don't have nowhere to put them, or they outgrow the root system outgrows the container, then I got to start doing extra work. That added work just makes my life a little more complicated, a little more hectic, a little more stressful, and I try to keep those things out of my life as much as I can, and I'm sure you do too. So with that being said, the most important thing to know is your average first and last frost dates. See, we don't want to put our plants out in the garden after we've spent so much time and given them so much care indoors just to have them killed off by the frost. Now, your cooler season crops, they can handle a light frost. Some of them are very hardy and they can handle a good amount of frost without dying. It might burn their leaves back or something, but it's not going to kill them. Yeah, you try that with a cucumber or a pepper or a tomato and you'll find out real quick. That plant didn't like that, didn't appreciate it, and it's going to die. And then you got to start all over. Now, if it happens early enough, you've got plenty of time. You just throw you some out there in the good warm ground, wait 6, 8, 10 weeks, you'll see your plant start doing good, but you still got to wait all those days to maturity, and kind of defeated the purpose of starting them indoors, because that's what we're doing. We're trying to get big healthy plants so we can get them out there, because that's when we start counting our days to harvest. And that's one thing I think I should mention. When you look at your seed packet, it's going to tell you days to maturity. It's going to say days to harvest, and it's not going to tell you if that's from the day you started your seed or the day you transplanted that plant out in the ground. Just a good rule of thumb, if it doesn't say from days to harvest from seed germination, then you might as well assume it's from when you transplant it out in the ground. And that's just a little tip, little bonus there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example, just a few scenarios, what you can expect. And this is when I'm going to start looking at my little notes here. The first example we're going to use is broccoli. I'm going to lift my head up so I'm not peeking my microphone. My average last frost date ranges between April 19th and 27th. So I can say the last week of April, and it's a cool season crop. It can be transplanted 2 weeks before that date. And I need to start growing it indoors 4 to 6 weeks before the day I want to transplant it. So typically, I'm going to start my seeds 6 to 8 weeks before that frost date. Pretty simple, ain't it? Same thing would go with the peppers, the tomatoes, any of those nightshade family crops, except for potatoes. Potatoes are nightshade. So with our tomatoes, same thing applies. My last frost is going to come April 19th to April 27th. I can plant them and I can transplant them out in my garden 2 weeks after that date. and I need to start them inside 6 to 8 weeks before that. Now you could probably do a couple more weeks if you wanted to, if you had the room. I don't have the room. So I need to start my seeds around March 8th inside. You can see it's the 12th, so I've got about a month before I really should start those seeds. And with all that being said, that's how you start. That's how you know when to start your seeds. Now, one thing I'm going to mention is it's very apparent on the internet that there's a great deal of confusion about a growing zone or a plant hardiness zone, as it's really called. It's a USDA plant hardiness zone. And what that means is how cold it typically gets for a particular region. Has nothing to do when we start our seeds. It has everything to do with which plants can survive the harshness of the winter in our area. So if you live where I live in zone 7B, I'm not going to try to keep any citrus outside. But if I was in zones 9 or 10, I'd very well have me a row of some citrus. For me, in zone 7B, my citrus has to come indoors during the winter. And that's perfectly fine. You know, this is the first year we're actually trying that. So far, so good. The plants are doing good. They're healthy. Going to start taking them outside as soon as the days get just a little warmer. When the days start averaging in the middle 60s, I'm going to start putting them out there. So that's how we know when to start our seeds safely indoors. So if you've learned something or found this content enjoyable, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. And if you've got some friends out there that are curious about when to start their seeds, why don't you share it with them on other social media, folks. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll find out that I'll share some stuff there that I can't really share on the YouTube platform. And as always, we sure are glad to be with you. Hope you're having a great day. See you on the next one.